No.
I talk about this really cool stuff in biology. But it's challenging her beliefs. It's challenging what her parents and her minister have told them, and it's setting up all these conflicts, and you can see it in some of the students' faces that they are seriously stressed.
And it actually has a physical effect, a physiological effect, makes them nauseous.
Yes.
Congratulations. I think that's terrific. Because, I mean, as you say, it's not as though you're actually insulting their religion, you're simply telling them science, and that's wonderful.
No, you know, in my classes, I actually go out of my, for instance, this one class I teach, which is an introductory biology course, and the first third of the class is all history and philosophy, and we actually talk about the contributions of religion to science. And I'm not talking about it in a demeaning way. I'm saying that, you know, St. Augustine had some good ideas about, you know, the proper domain of religion and knowledge of the world and so forth. And even that bothers them, because I think what they see is that here's a strategy that's actually tackling them on issues they thought they were safe on. That they were pretty confident that things like philosophy and history were on their side. That Jesus is a historical figure, etc., and that science has been, or religion has been this great contributor to culture. But you got to, when you start looking at religion as a philosophy and as a historical player, you're taking away some of the mystery right there.
Yes. Do you think that, I mean, I think we both agree that creationism shouldn't be taught in science classes, but I think it should probably be taught in history of ideas and
oh yeah,
and you probably don't have religion classes in, do you? But I mean,
yes.
Religion is an important phenomenon. There's no doubt about it, and therefore, one
I
could
agree.
teach.
Yeah, if there were a way to do it, if there were a way to actually teach a comparative religion course in American high schools, it would be wonderful, and I think it would really help.
That's one of my main aims. I mean, why not?
Oh yeah, I agree, but there's this thing called separation of church and state.
Yes.
That is enforced.
Is the separation, I'm interested in this, does the constitutional separation between church and state apply to comparative religion? I thought it might only apply to indoctrination in one particular religion. Surely you can teach religion as an anthropological, psychological, sociological, historical phenomenon.
Except when you look at the history of separation of church and state, you know, it's initially set up not to protect the state, it's set up to protect religion.
Yes.
And it's still widely seen that way, that there are attempts now to erode the separation of church and state, but I think they're mistaken from the point of view of religion, because what separation of church and state has allowed is for religions to go unquestioned. That what you do is you get your exposure to religion in Sunday school and in church on Sunday, and nobody questions it the rest of the week.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If somebody were to propose teaching comparative religion in schools, would the strongest opposition come from secularists, from people at this conference, or would it come from religious people?
That's a hard one. But there are knee-jerk atheists who would oppose it. I wouldn't be one of them. But I think ultimately what would kill it is the fact that good little Baptist parents would send their good little Baptist children to school, and they'd hear about Buddhism, and they would blow their stacks.
Yes.
And that would kill it right there.
Yes. All the more reason to do it.
Well, see, now you just scuttled the whole project, because I can see Richard Dawkins endorses this, so obviously it's wrong.
Yes, yeah. I can't do anything about that effect. Yes. That if you and I endorse something, but Dan Dennett's very keen on it, by the way, too. I am interested and curious about this idea that strong atheists, like people at the atheist conferences and so on, would oppose it, and at the same time religious people would oppose it, for, I suppose, opposite reasons. Maybe the first thing to do would be to persuade our atheist colleagues that they should drop their opposition and perhaps divert their attention from what I think are relatively trivial causes, like getting rid of the 10 Commandments from courthouses and getting rid of In God We Trust from money,
that one, yeah.
and instead divert their attention to something that might actually have some effect, like a campaign for comparative religion in schools.
Oh, well. As you know, you're not going to find unity in the atheist community anywhere.
Yes.
We're too different. There's always going to be people fighting those things. But the people who are opposing the Ten Commandments and who are opposing the In God We Trust on coinage, they actually have some good arguments that those are strange historical artifacts.
Well, I mean, it's absolutely monstrous that it took. I mean, in 1953 or something like 54, In God We Trust was added to the money,
right?
And the Pledge of Allegiance, One Nation Under God, was added at roughly the same time, sometime in the early 50s. I mean, just on historical grounds, the idea that that something so recent should now be regarded by so many Americans as
right there with the Founding Fathers.
Going back to the Founding Fathers, yes. Whereas the Founding Fathers are probably spinning in their graves at both.
Well, they took a pretty conciliatory attitude towards a lot of religion, but these are they're little problems, but they're kind of symptomatic, and I think you're right that a lot of people, what they're doing is they're focusing on treating those symptoms rather than the root cause. And it would be good to have more of us focusing on going right for the heart of religion and going for that instead of these superficial sorts of trivialities that are out there. But on the other hand, cleaning up some of the trivialities would be kind of nice.
I mean, the best case I can make for them is consciousness raising. I'm very keen on consciousness raising. I suppose we learned the word from the feminists who raised our consciousness about phrases like one man, one vote. And my favourite example of it is the labelling of children with the religion of their parents, which I think is child abuse. And it's something that you can immediately get people to understand. If you say you would never dream of talking about a postmodernist child, instantly they get it. Yes. And they've had their consciousness raised, and with a bit of luck, they will get a little kind of shiver of reaction when the next time they hear somebody speak of a Catholic child or a Muslim child. And I suppose you could say that Ten Commandments in courtrooms and things, that's consciousness raising. But I wonder whether it's raising consciousness in the wrong way and making atheists out to be sort of killjoys and fusspots and objecting to Christmas cribs and things. I think we probably do ourselves a lot of harm by making a fuss about the superficial trappings of religion.
Yeah, it does make people look petty, that they're not going for anything of substance. But then on the other hand, what do we do of substance? What can we do in the public sphere? I mean, personally, we can do things like talk among ourselves, try and recruit people to the ideas, write books, write blogs, whatever. But there's limited things we can actually do.
Well, we could pick on issues. We could say things like stem cell research, things like the teaching of evolution. What about the tax-free status of churches, which has enormous consequences, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Locally, all over the country.
Yes.
And that's a real big one.
Yes.
And if we're constantly diverting our attention to trivia like I don't know, defacing dollar bills or something, we're ignoring the really big things, like the number of tax dollars that these people don't pay.
Yeah, but actually, I think there are a lot of atheists who are working on it. I mean,
Good.
Things like Americans United for Separation of Church and State, which isn't an atheist group at all. It's a secular group, but they're working for these. I'm constantly getting email from people saying, okay, well, there's this bill before Congress that we've got to take care of because it's endorsing something or other. Here in this state, the local Minnesota atheist group has been working towards getting that tax placed back on the churches. Excellent. And there's been a few proposals along those lines. Although, of course, they're not going to be very popular among the electorate, but keep trying.